Jesus was at a lake to preach. There were a lot of people there who wanted to listen to him. He asked a fisherman named Simon, "Can I use your boat to talk to the people from the lake?" Simon agreed, and from the boat, Jesus told the people things about God. Then Jesus said to Simon, "Go out and throw out your fishing nets." Simon replied, "We did not catch anything all night." By day, it was usually a waste of time trying to catch anything because the fish were swimming too far down. "But if you say so," Simon said, "I'll try." So they went out again to the lake, and Simon threw his nets into the water. The nets filled with so much fish that they had trouble bringing them all onto the boat. Some of the nets even tore. Simon had to call for help from other fishermen, John and James. When Simon realized what had just happened, he was startled. He knelt in front of Jesus and confessed, "Go away from me, I am a bad person." But Jesus answered, "Do not be afraid. From now on, you will no longer catch fish, but lead people to God. You will fish for men." The fishermen brought their boats to the beach, left everything behind, and went with Jesus from then on. One day, a man with leprosy came to Jesus. Leprosy was a wildly spread skin disease. Lepers had disfigured skin and open wounds. Many people were afraid to get infected by them, so they had to live outside the cities and villages so that the people did not get close to them. This man asked Jesus, "If you want to, you can heal me." "I want to," Jesus replied, and touched him with his hand. Immediately, his skin turned normal again, and he was completely healed from his illness. Jesus told him, "Don't tell anyone that you are healed. Only go and show the Jewish leaders that you have been healed." One day, Jesus was preaching inside a house. There were so many people that wanted to listen to him that the house was completely filled. A man that could not walk heard that Jesus was in town. He also knew that Jesus had the power to heal people. Therefore, he wanted to see Jesus, and his friends helped him. They tried to get him to Jesus, but just as the house was so full of people, there was no way to get him through. So, thinking about what they could do, they came up with a crazy plan. They took their lame friend to the roof of the house and started to make a hole in the roof. Once it was big enough, they lowered their friend down to Jesus on a board. When Jesus saw this, he was impressed by the great faith of the lame man and said to him, "Your sins are forgiven." There were some scholars in the room that focused on studying God's written law. These were the scribes. They got angry because from their point of view, only God himself had the right to forgive sin. Jesus knew what they were thinking, so he asked all of his listeners a question. What is easier to say? Your sins are forgiven, or get up and walk? I will show you now that my power to forgive sin comes from God. Then he turned to the man and told him, "Get up and walk." Immediately he was able to stand and walk again. He picked up his mat and praised God for his healing and walked around. Everyone who saw this miracle was thrilled and praised God.
One day, Jesus met a man named Matthew. Matthew was a tax collector. The people didn't like him, since he collected money for the Romans, who ruled over them. Jesus asked Matthew to follow him. Immediately, Matthew stood up from his booth and left it behind to join Jesus. He invited Jesus and his friends, the disciples, to a dinner at his home. There were also a lot of other tax collectors there, and other people with bad reputations sitting and eating with them. When the Jewish leaders saw this, they asked Jesus, "Why do you spend time with these kinds of people?" Jesus answered, "Healthy people don't need a doctor, but sick people do. I have come to lead people back to God who are far away from him. I have come to save the lost."
People criticized Jesus because his disciples were eating and drinking, unlike John's and the Pharisees' disciples who fasted and prayed. Jesus replied that it wasn't right to fast while the bridegroom, himself, was with them, but they would fast when he was gone. He used two parables, one about not using new cloth to patch old garments and another about not putting new wine into old wineskins. He explained that new wine needs new wineskins, and people often prefer the old over the new.